G'day everybody, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so this is the results, or what you should be listening for on the first critical listening 5 tracks that I put up as shorts. So the whole idea of this series is really to give you a bit of an idea and insight about what I listen for and why I use some of these tracks that you're going to be hearing that are out of my reference playlist. So I've got other songs that I pick that I know very, very, very well, as I said in the introduction to this. So I thought what I'd do is I would play those tracks for you. So on the bottom of the short, you will see the title of the track scrolling through. And the reason I've done them as shorts is because you can see all that, obviously, and I don't have to write it in the actual title of the video. So you can download those tracks. They're all on Qobuz, which is the streaming platform that I use. You're probably going to get most of them on Tidal and anywhere else as well, but we'll obviously stick to the high-res versions of them if you can. And what this should do is give you some insight into just how your system performs. And I can talk to you about how those tracks perform on my system, but really that's hard. I mean, okay, you get a bit of an explanation as to how they sound for me in my room, but this isn't your system and this isn't your room. So I will give you some guidelines around what you should be listening for, and then by all means, please, under the video in the comments, please leave your comments about how you found those tracks, what you heard in those tracks. I'd be really interested. So I've got some notes here. So we'll go through now. Track 1 was, this is a ripper actually, it's one I use quite a bit, by Kashmir, and it was called McCann, and it is, this track's really dynamic, super dynamic, as you will know when you heard it. Pretty much right across the spectrum of frequencies, this is very dynamic. There's great tonal variance in the lower octave on this track. The volume, at volume, it will give your speakers a real workout. So some caution needs to be taken on this track. You're listening for tonal variance that happens in the lower octave and the dynamics in the lower octave. There's not too many tracks that give you that kind of real dynamic shift in the lower octave that I would judge and trust to use in judging the lower end of a system. But that track is one of my absolute favorites for that. But you've got to be careful not to turn this up too loud, because it's been known to damage speakers, that track, because it really is dynamic, and it really will give your lower octave an absolute workout. So I like it. I use it a lot. They're the sorts of things. Now in my room, there's really lovely dynamic swings and really lovely tonal changes in the bass of that particular track. So I can hear all of those changes, those tonal changes, and that percussiveness that really just fills the room up with low pressure energy. So depending on what your system is and how resolved it is, what you're going to be able to hear and what you're not, that'll also come down to just where your system's at this stage. But that's the sorts of things you should be listening for on that track. I'll be very interested to see what you heard. So track 2 was The Little Sneak. Now this one's by Larry Carlton, and this is a beautiful studio recording. This is just quintessentially a great studio recording. As I've just said, again, this one, the track on this that you're listening for tonal changes in the bass guitar and deep drum hits on this particular track, and you really will feel that. And you can give this one a little bit of a sneak up on the volume, and it really is just a very sweet sounding studio recording, this one. On those clean drum hits, you really do hear the skins resonating around the body of the drum. The bass guitar should sound lovely and sweet, which I said, just like you're listening to somebody playing bass guitar in the same room as you're listening in. It's just got that really present feeling about it as a recording, and you should hear that. You should really imagine you're sitting in a tracking room listening to that being played right on the other side of the glass. It really has got that lovely studio feel about it, that one. So track 3 is Drums Stop, No Drums by Steve Smith. Now, this is another great drumming track. This is, I use this one quite a bit because it really is an amazing track. I've written here, the track is just all about basking in the drum kit, letting it surround you in the sound stage, because it really should surround you in the sound stage the way this drum kit's been mic'd up and this track's been engineered. On a well-resolving system, this should sound really similar to someone playing a drum kit in the same room you're in. It's percussive, really nice cymbal splashes. It's working the frequencies around 30 to 50 hertz in your system. So that's really what you're listening for there. It'll have that really, really, you know, you'll hear where every microphone is on the drum kit, and it really does swing around the soundstage, and the cymbal splashes are not hard or harsh. Certainly they don't sound that way on my system. They just sound really, really authentic, as a drum kit should sound if you're standing next to it. Now, some people may not have stood in front of a drum kit. They may not have been in the same room as a drum kit. As an engineer, I've heard all these instruments played. I've stood right in front of them, and so I have that insight, and I can tell you that recording sounds really, really, on a good system, that recording sounds really, really authentic to what it sounds like if you're actually listening to a drum kit and you're right there at a live band. It's got that percussive push to that lower frequency, which is, as I said, really, you know, makes you feel like you're there. So that's track 3. Now, track 4, this one I use a bit too, and you'll have heard it up at Paul's place because I was using it to tune his system, and that is Those Bones by the Fairfield 4. Now, this is almost throat singing. Singing the bass baritone is unbelievable, and it is so brilliantly captured. So again, this is microphones that were used here were amazing. The throaty graveliness of this guy is just a sound to behold. It really is. I've heard this guy sing on several tracks, obviously not live, just recorded, but and on varying degrees of quality of system, and it still has that presence about it. I mean, in my room, it just makes you giggle because, I mean, you just don't think a guy can get that low, and it just projects into my room and just, you know, gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. It has an absolute natural, you almost feel like you're sitting on the guy's tongue when he's letting those really low notes go, because it just surrounds you. And that's how it should feel in the room when you're listening to it. It should just have a totally immersive sound to that vocal. It just comes at you, and it's like, oh my God. And then you're just trying to get your head around how someone can sing tonally that accurate at that lower octave for a human voice. Very, very impressive. That should be an impressive track on just about every system that's out there to a certain degree. When you get to the level of resolution that I'm at, it makes you giggle. There's no other way to describe it. It just kind of makes you laugh a bit because it's just out of the ordinary. I sometimes use this track also for soundstage, as it should easily place all of the singers across your soundstage brilliantly. The bass baritone singer should be just inside the left speaker. So again, it's an imaging track as well, but I just use it mainly for bass. There'll be imaging tracks that I've already recorded that I'll be dropping with an explanation and what have you, and you'll probably see me in different backgrounds because I've done all the recordings for the tracks. They're all sitting there queued up ready to go. So I'll do the next explanations. I could do something in Hong Kong tomorrow when I leave, or I could be in the Philippines, and I can certainly intro them and then talk about the tracks anywhere around the world where I am, as long as I've got the recordings ready to go, which I have. So that's just one of those tracks that I think everybody, if you've not used it or heard it, put it on your system and try it, because it really is one of those amazing tracks. Okay, so track 5 is Poem of Chinese Drum. Now, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the guy's name. He is excellent. This is big, huge, tribal Chinese drums being struck here, and it really is. This is probably the most percussive drum track that I've ever heard. In my room at volume, this just moves air at me, and it hits me in the chest. And it's a very fast track. So the strike on the drum just comes out of the Wilsons and comes straight at me, and then it stops. It stops as quickly as it starts. So be ready for that if you've not played it on your system. Just careful again with the volume for a little bit until you know where your system where your system's capable of producing those kind of lower octave strikes, because I have heard some speakers make some weird and wacky noises because they were up a bit loud on that track too. So it's one of those ones that is very, very, very sharp, fast, and stops very quickly. So the sort of things you should be listening for. It's an amazing recording. You should really be able to hear the drumsticks. Now, this guy's not using a felt mallet on the end of a drumstick here. These are sticks. They are thick sticks that he's using to strike these big drums. And in my system, I can actually hear that stick strike the drum. I can hear the skin of that huge drum resonate immediately, and then that resonance goes down into the body of the drum, and I hear that, and then it all stops within a split second. But I can pick those things up in the recording on my system. There'll be varying degrees of what you will hear depending on where your system's at the moment, but that is the sort of thing I can hear in that recording. So a well-resolved system will definitely be able to hear that initial strike, the resonance across the drum skin, and then that energy going down into the body of the drum, which is where the air pressure moves around in your room, if your system is able to reproduce that. This is a great track, and I use this track as well for soundstage dimensionality, because there are sections in this track where there are really, really soft strikes on the drum, and they almost sound like, in my system, like they're coming from the room behind or the front wall. So that they're in the next room over, and then that builds as it gets closer to the listener. And it's a really good track also to use for dimensionality in the soundstage and imaging. So I would definitely suggest that track could be used in that regard as well. But certainly it really is it's a great track for reproducing fast, quick, low octave bass response. That is really the 5 tracks. They're the sorts of things you should be listening for on them. Please leave your comments below. I'm really interested to see what you hear and whether what you hear correlates with my explanation of what you should be hearing, what I'm hearing. It's a lot of fun, this. The next ones will be mid-range tracks, and then I've got high-frequency tracks, and then I've got soundstage and imaging all wrapped up, ready to go. So while I'm away for the next month, I'll be able to drop these as I go. Also stay tuned, because the next episode of the Linkwitz build series and Paul's hi-fi system is all wrapped up, ready to go. So I'll drop that after I give this explanation video a chance for you all to see. And there'll be plenty coming up. Anything I film live in Hong Kong and in the Philippines, I'll upload pretty much straight away. So that'll be literally, when you see that, that's literally just happening. So there'll be a fair bit coming up in the next month. There's tons racked up. There's lots coming up soon on the channel. As I said, I'm away till the 3rd of May, but I don't plan on stopping. There's plenty more coming. I'll keep going while I'm away, and I'll bring you guys some interesting stuff if I come across things on the trip, and so that you can all see what's going on. So Love having you on board. Please give the video a like if you're enjoying this. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, because it really does help the channel, and it helps the whole thing grow so that we can do more of this stuff. And when I get back from overseas, I've got a few things lined up for review. So we'll be talking about that as well. And you'll see what's coming in the room. So tons coming up. Love having you on board. Talk to you soon.